This next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com and on Twitter, too. A lot of people have sent this in. It's just breaking today.
Well, who broke it?
I don't know about that, but we could say that the story was broken by, it appears, Sean Ross Sapp, who's with Fightful.
That's easy for you to say.
He's with Fightful Select. I have to say, him and Mike Johnson break all the big stories. They do a great job, but he has an article here. I don't have the whole article because apparently it's a premium site that we don't have access to. But the headline...
But if you call the hotline...
The headline is, Vince McMahon headed to the WWE Performance Center to scout talent. Ooh. So I thought, even if we don't know all the details, this is something I'd love to get your thoughts on because you are someone who ran a developmental territory for WWE. Did Vince McMahon ever come visit?
Well, yes and no. One time after I was already gone, OVW had, like the year before that Laurinaitis screwed Danny and canceled the contract that they had just signed. He came one time, I heard, and that was it. He's trying to put the fear of God into some people. Apparently, he's like, I don't like my talent roster now, and I'm going to go to the Performance Center, and I'm going to find some guys that I want to push, and everybody ought to be scared. That's how I'm reading this. But when we first set up OVW, it was in Danny's existing place that he was at in Jeffersonville, Indiana. And we've mentioned the old building where we were the only tenants, and I'd just go out and throw chairs through windows when shit went south. And we were there from 1999 until the summer of 2002 because the fans knew where it was. We could draw enough of them to fill up our TV tapings, and it was cheap. And there was no way, pretty much, Danny Davis had set up a company. There was no way OVW could really go out of business at that point. It also didn't have the upside that it would later, but that was the initial location. And we stayed there until we were sure that everything was copacetic. But finally, everybody from the office, Jim Ross and everybody started saying, you got to get a new place before anybody named McMahon comes down here. Because, I mean, God, there was no heat. There was no air conditioning. The toilets most of the time didn't work. So that's when we got the new place over off Shepherdsville Road and moved in there in 2002. And that's where really we had room for everything then. You had the workout area and the promo room and a nice arena that would seat 400 people and et cetera, et cetera. But still Vince never came. And once a year or so, they'd send the writers down. And I think one time I was only there 6 years though now. I think I saw the writers 4 times, maybe 5, but I was only there 6 years. And Stephanie came once, and I actually made the effort to go when Stephanie came with some of the writers. I believe Liver Lip Lagana was with him on that trip because he brought it up to me years afterwards. But otherwise, it's all people I assume that are long gone from the company. But I sat with them, and every time there was a tryout match, I would explain the strengths and the weaknesses of each guy, how long he'd been training, how well he'd been doing, whether he was a better natural babyface or a natural heel, how the promos were, the whole 9 yards, give them the scoop on everybody. And then they left, and nothing ever happened, and the only people that got called up again were the people that we said, no, these guys are green and not ready. I can't remember the specific names. It was one of a number of times. And otherwise, you never saw the writers. You never saw anybody from creative. Like I said, I was there 6 years. I maybe saw them 3 or 4 times. And, you know, for a while when they were mad at Bruce and Bruce didn't have anything to do, they would have him review the OVW television program and send notes to Vince and the creative team. Well, of course, because he was pissed that he wasn't the creative team. He didn't watch the show from week to week, and he was trying to apply sports entertainment logic to it instead of wrestling. So he went, well, why do they acknowledge that Jim Ross can make these matches? Because we tell the truth here. It's wrestling. Jim Ross is a talent executive. He's the guy that's signing all of these fucking guys to contracts that they're aspiring to here in this developmental league. Anyway, so they constantly sent down producers. They constantly sent down wrestlers, either that were rehabbing injuries or getting back in the ring to knock ring rust off or needed to lose some weight, or just guys like Chris Kanyon that just, if they weren't booked and working, they wanted to come and help guys. We got tons of, of those guys, Tom Pritchard and Boss Man, Big Bubba, Ray Traylor, when he was an agent, and, a variety of those guys had always liked it. We didn't encourage the writers ever to come because we didn't want them, but we never refused them to come. They just never did. And like I said, after the time with Stephanie and whoever it was, I told Danny, I said, if the writers ever do come back again, just tell them I couldn't be here because I either need 5 minutes or 5 years with them. 5 minutes to say hello, welcome to Louisville, hope y'all have fun, or 5 years to teach them what the fuck the wrestling business is, because anything in between would just frustrate both sides. So, and that was pretty much that. But so I'm thinking, no, Vince doesn't just announce he's going to scout talent unless he's saying, God damn it, I'm going to find some stuff. I'm going to find the people we ought to be pushing, and I'm going to fucking light a fire under everybody's ass. That's exactly what he will do. I'm not saying it'll be great decisions all around. I'm just saying that's exactly what is in his mind right now.
They've had Karrion Kross, Scarlett, and I believe Bronson Reed working some matches at recent TV tapings. I believe someone told me they may have even been on the main event show, which I've never seen, and I don't even know where it is. But the fact that they are there, and now Vince is going down and looking for talent, what do you think that says about Vince's mindset about his current roster? We've seen some recent cuts, some surprising ones like Braun Strowman. But what does it say about how Vince sees the roster? And the other thing is, what the fuck's he going to think when he goes to NXT and he sees Gargano and, some of these guys that he's going to hate?
He might have a talk with Triple H in the car on the way from the airport or whatever once he sees the size of some of the guys. But no, what Vince is thinking probably is that, I'm seeing these guys on my main roster and nobody's getting over. Nobody's connecting with people. All the things that he says. And the problem is you needed to have a product that people actually still kind of believed, even if they knew the business was, predetermined in some way before everybody was completely smart. You needed a product that people somewhat believed. You needed wrestling bookers that were booking it in a wrestling show fashion. And you needed talent that was new enough, fresh enough, different enough, but good enough or had enough charisma or the oomph factor of something that you could fucking grab that and push them. And right now, I don't think they have any of those things. But Vince is thinking that they still have all the things they used to have, such as a product that people believe and fucking actual wrestling bookers. He's going to blame, well, these guys aren't hungry enough, or they're not ready, or they're not going out and snatching whatever. I want somebody that'll make some waves. And he's going to go and look, and he's going to find, probably just to be contrary, some guys that he sees something in that nobody else has been, pitching to him. Hey, we ought to get this guy or that guy. And he's going to figure out a way to do something with them. And it might be entertaining to see what happens, positive or negative.
Well, we shall see. I will say Triple H on the last conference call I heard before one of the big NXT shows, I listened to it. I've never heard him so defensive, and I don't know if argumentative is correct, but kind of going back and forth with a few of the wrestling journalists on the line. I've never heard him do that before. He's been
that Mike Johnson can be a real asshole. He pisses people off all the time. So maybe it was just called for. I
don't know. I think there's a lot of pressure right now with
Mike's so pushy.
Developmental, or whatever we want to call it.
Yeah, there's pressure because instead of the main roster, being the goal of the place for the people in developmental to get to, the main roster ratings have now fallen almost to the level of developmental. So it would be a lateral move at best.
Well, Jim, there is the chance that Vince McMahon will go down there and look at what's going on and watch an episode of NXT for the first time and say, what have I been paying Paul to do? What is going on here? I trusted this man. I think I've been ripped off. I think someone's taking money they don't deserve. I feel like I need some restitution.
An aggrieved party needing restitution, baby. from someone who has perpetrated a financial or moral or even physical injustice against them, I can think of no one better to take that case than this man.
Call Stephen P. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Those are the rest.
Folks, it can be any amount from a few $1,000s given to an elderly woman to compensate for State Farm being a bad neighbor, all the way up to millions of dollars for the victims of sexual assault at the Veterans Administration Hospital, or the folks whose hearing was damaged by defective earplugs in the service or in the military service. Wherever it may be and whatever the case, Stephen P. New of newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084, is the man to call in times of crisis, in times of trouble, in times of having to navigate the treacherous legal waters of jurisprudence and then go into the sea of tranquility of settlement and judgment. Folks, Stephen P. New is the captain of the ship that can get you through those very daring straits and set you up for a life of leisure, luxury, and contentment afterwards, after he puts the screws to the no-good son of a bitch that screwed you around to begin with. Get even with Stephen, newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. Also, the official sponsor of August 7th's Bash in Beckley at the Raleigh County Armory in Beckley, West Virginia, where a plethora, a variety, a literal cornucopia of pro wrestling superstars will convene and compete there, and New Law Office is an official title sponsor. Is that correct, Brian? Have I mentioned all of, and he's a friend to furry woodland creatures. He's a wrestling fan and a Democrat. What more can you ask from one man than Stephen P. New?
He's got a great comic book collection.
There you go. And he's got a fine daughter.
Well, he's got a
at least
lovely young lady.
He's the one's been paying for her all this time. I don't know if it's been made official by DNA, but she's lovely.
What are you saying? Stephen has a wonderful family, and we love him and appreciate him.
Family, yes.
And we thank him for being here.
we thank him for his support.